Home Church. Thanks for jumping online to catch week 2 of our October series, The New Mission. Today we're looking at the new commandment that Jesus gave us. Last week, we looked at the mission that Jesus gave us to be fishers of men. When he asked those guys to step out of the boat and stop catching fish in the sea and start fishing for people for him. Because our call for us as Christians is to go out into the world and find people that need to hear about Jesus. And that leads us right into our mission for today that we're going to be discussing. In John 15, 9 through 12, Jesus is talking to his disciples, probably days before the crucifixion. And he said, "As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. For if you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete." And then our new mission that he gives us. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Now notice what he says up here. He says, if you keep my commands, you'll remain in my love. And then he finishes this off and he says, my command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Because love was the message that Jesus was teaching and preaching. 1 Peter 4:8 says, above all, have a fervent and unfailing love for one another, because love covers a multitude of sins. Maybe somebody's done you wrong. Maybe somebody has cheated you or lied about you or said things about you. But Jesus is still calling us to love those people just like he does. John 13:35 says, by this everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. That's how people should know us, is that we love one another. So on our mission to love, we're going to look at a couple things. And we're going to start with this story, this passage that you've probably heard before. We're talking about the woman at the well. In John 4, it says, so he came into a town in Samaria called Sychar. Near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to her, will you give me a drink? For his disciples had gone into town to buy food. So it's in the heat of the day. This woman has come by herself to draw water, and Jesus asked her for a drink. Now, if we want to carry out the mission that Jesus gave us, the mission to love others as he has loved us, there's a few things that don't matter for that mission. And that's what I want to talk about today. First one, religion doesn't matter. Just love people. 9 and 10 says, the Samaritan woman said to him, you are a Jew, and I'm a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink? For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. And Jesus answered her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. So religion didn't matter to Jesus, and he was willing to put aside what she believed and who she was just to give her a chance to know him. And too many times today, the church is too well known for what we're against. We're too well known for wanting to shut our doors and just be safe inside our little church. But we should be known by what we are for. And we should be known because we love other people like Jesus did. Now, Jesus was a Jew, as the woman pointed out. She was a Samaritan, as she also pointed out. She said, I'm a Samaritan woman and you're a Jewish man. Why are you asking me for a drink? Because in that day and time, the Samaritans were very looked down on. They were ones that had married outside of the nation of Israel, and they had created other bloodlines, and they were looked down on that. And Jesus knew that. But if Jesus didn't see the differences in what they believed and who they were to be a reason to stop the conversation, then we shouldn't either. Too many times, we get terrified because somebody believes different than we do. When in reality, we should just love them, like Jesus has called us to do. In reality, we should tell them about the Jesus that we know and about the truths that we know. The second thing, social acceptance doesn't matter on your mission to love people. And I know that in a day and age that we live in right now, if you say something that's not socially acceptable or you do something that's not socially acceptable, you're going to get blasted on Facebook or on Twitter or Instagram or whatever social platform there is for people to blast you. But Jesus was pretty well known for going against the grains of what was considered socially acceptable for that time. Even in the simple fact that he just sat down and had a conversation with this woman proves that. The first thing his disciples said when they came back was, "Why is he talking to that woman?" Even his own disciples had those biases and had that thought that he shouldn't be talking to her. She's a Samaritan. But Jesus would go against that grain. I said Jesus was probably the first to think, just because I disagree with you, just because I'm telling you that you're wrong, doesn't mean I hate you. And in today's society, people have that view that if we don't agree, we have to hate each other. And that's not what Jesus has called us to do. He's called us to love people. And Jesus offered the truth without judgment. As we read on to here, and Jesus is telling her about who he is, the woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water." So he told her, "Go call your husband and come back." Because he knew he should be talking to the husband. But she jumps in and says, "I have no husband," she replied. And Jesus knew that, and Jesus was pulling her into this conversation. Even though it wasn't socially acceptable for him to be talking to her because she was a Samaritan, and it wasn't acceptable for him to be talking to her because she's a woman, Jesus still drew her into the conversation. And she said, "I have no husband." And Jesus said to her, "You're technically right. You're technically not lying. You're right when you say you have no husband, because the fact is that you've had 5, and the man that you have now is not your husband. What you have said is quite true." So he blasted her out. But no, he didn't. He told her the truth, and he did it without judgment. Notice what Jesus didn't do here. He never called her names. He never blasted her sins for everyone to hear. He didn't put her on Instagram about how terrible she was. He never beat her over the head about what she was doing. He never judged her, but he told her the truth. Now, when he tells her the truth, she knows there's something different about him. And the way that Jesus interacted with this woman allowed him to finish the conversation with her. Because he did it without hate, because he did it without judgment, he got to continue talking to her. And the conversation went from the woman saying, "I could see that you're a prophet," to Jesus saying, "The one that you are speaking to, the Messiah that you're talking about, that's me. That's me." And he did it without judgment. And he didn't let her religion or social norms of the time stop him from loving this woman. And the love that he showed this woman led to my favorite verse out of this entire passage. Some people might say it's the verse where she says, "I want that living water," or when Jesus reveals to her that I am the Messiah. But my favorite verse out of this entire passage is right here. "Many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. He told me everything I ever did." This woman goes back into town, goes into the very town where the wives of some of the men that she's been with probably are. That's why she's at the well at noon, because she doesn't want to come in the cool of the day in the morning to draw water with the other women, because sometimes women can be mean. And she didn't want to be around them. She didn't want to be a part of their group because she was an outcast. But she went back and she said, "He told me everything I ever did." Now, I don't know about you, but that's really not a conversation I want to have with Jesus at the well. If he's going to sit down and tell me everything I've ever done, that's probably not a conversation I want to have. But this woman used that and turned it into a testimony. And the fact that Jesus didn't let what she believed influence that, and Jesus didn't let the social norms of the time affect that, he got to finish the conversations. And it says that they asked Jesus to stay, and he stayed for a couple more days, and many more people came to believe on him during that time. And they even said at first, "We believe because of your testimony." Speaking to the woman, they said, "But now we believe because we've heard him ourselves." So don't let social norms stop you from loving people. Next thing, this is hard for us to realize and to understand, is that your plans really don't matter. We should just love people. In Luke 8:40-42, it says, "When Jesus returned, a crowd welcomed him, for they were all expecting him. Then a man named Jairus, a synagogue leader, a religious person, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come to his house because his only daughter, a girl of about 12, was dying. And as Jesus was on his way, the crowds almost crushed him." Now, if you've picked up on this story already, or you've read this before and you've heard this before, you know what's fixing to happen. What's really fixing to happen is the plan that Jairus had just got wrecked because someone touched Jesus. His plan was working. He got to Jesus. He ran straight to Jesus and he said, my daughter is dying. She's my only daughter. I need you to come to my house and heal her. And Jesus said, I'll go. And he's getting there and he's got to Jesus. Jesus was coming. Everything was going to be okay. And then she touched him. And Jairus' plan got wrecked because Luke 8:45 and 46 says that Jesus asked, who touched me? And when they all denied it, Peter said, Master, the people are crowding and pressing around you. Like, how can you really ask who touched you? There's people all around. But Jesus said, someone touched me, and I know that power has gone out from me. Now, when I've read this story before, as I was growing up, I thought, man, that's awesome. This woman touched him, and he felt the power leave. And I never put myself in Jairus' position until I was a parent. And when I see this picture and this scene roll through my head, I see Jairus kind of standing off to the side, maybe wringing his hands, and I think, poor Jairus. He had a plan. His plan was working. He got there. He got Jesus to come. Everything's going to be great. His little girl's going to be okay. And then she touched him, and my plan got wrecked. And now Jesus is standing around asking people, who touched me? Who touched me? Who touched me? And Jairus is probably like, hey, it's fine. Somebody touched you and the power left, but I need you to come touch mine. I need you to come touch my daughter and make everything okay. And as he's standing over there, I just have to think, poor Jairus. But Isaiah 55:8-9 says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. And as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts are higher than your thoughts. And what we need to realize today is that his ways and his thoughts are not the only thing higher than ours. His plan for us is also higher than our own. As much as we try to plan out life and have a good plan for us, his plan is better. His plan is always better. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to have a plan. One of my favorite quotes is, failing to plan is planning to fail. But our plans should always yield to his plans. Just because our plan doesn't work the way that we think it should, doesn't mean it's not going to end the way God thinks it should. Jairus wasn't the only person here that had a plan. This woman also had a plan. She had spent 12 years bleeding and being taken advantage of by every doctor that she had seen, and nobody could help her. But when she stepped up and told Jesus what she did, when she stepped up and said, it was me, and I knew that if I could just touch the hem of your garment, that I would be healed, she got two things. She got the healing that she had been looking for 12 years, over a decade. 12 years she had looked for it. She finally got that healing, and she also got a new name. Nowhere else in Scripture do we see Jesus use this, but when she touched him and she said, it was me, because I knew that I could be healed if I just touched you, Jesus said, I have not seen any faith greater than this. Daughter, your faith has made you whole. And that's the amazing thing about this scene. She got the healing that she was looking for, and she got the new name. Now, the other thing that doesn't matter as we're trying to love people like Jesus did is opinions. To finish this story out of Luke 8, it says, while Jesus was still speaking, someone came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. Your daughter is dead, he said. Don't bother the teacher anymore. Hearing this, Jesus said to Jairus, don't be afraid, just believe, and she will be healed. I put myself in Jairus' shoes here. My plan was working. Everything was going just like I'd planned out, and then she touched him, and now my daughter's dead. Don't bother the teacher anymore. He's busy. He's got other people to heal. Don't bother him. Your daughter's dead. Your only daughter, your little 12-year-old girl, she's dead. And Jesus sees this. He knows what's going on, and he says, hey, it's going to be okay. Don't worry. Just believe, and she will be healed. Now, the world will not always understand why you love the way you love when you love difficult people. The world will not always agree with how you love. They may say that you're using an outdated book to guide your life. Absolutely. It's not outdated. It's still alive today just like it was 2,000 years ago. And I'm going to use it to guide my life every day. The world will also take advantage of your love. You're going to love people and they're going to take advantage of it. And then you're going to still love them. And you're going to still love them and still love them. They may also mock you because you love people that are doing evil to you. But that's what Jesus calls us to do. That's why Jesus himself, while hanging on the cross, looked at the people who were doing it to him and said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Basically looking down and said, Dad, they're pretty stupid. Just forgive them. I love them. Probably the same way we look at people and we just need to think, they're just pretty stupid. But I'm going to love them and I'm going to forgive them. But the opinions of the world don't matter. Luke 8:52-55 says, Meanwhile, all the people were wailing and mourning for her. Stop wailing, Jesus said. She is not dead, just asleep. And they laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. And you're going to talk to people at times, and you're going to love people, and they're going to laugh at you because they know what they know. And you're not going to convince them any different, but we're told to love them anyways. They laughed at him, knowing that she was dead, but he took her by the hand and said, My child, get up. Her spirit returned, and at once she stood up. Then Jesus told them, give her some food. Give her something to eat. She's been through a lot these past few minutes. She's probably hungry. Now, if opinions mattered, Jairus wouldn't have bothered the teacher any longer. When that person came and said, your daughter's dead, Jesus looked at him and said, well, that's your opinion, and opinions don't matter. And if opinions matter, Jairus would have just walked away right then, because his plan didn't go as he thought. And if opinions mattered, Jesus would have walked out when they laughed at him. Hey, that's fine. You guys don't want to see a miracle? You want to laugh at me? That's fine. I'm out. But Jairus just believed. And if opinions mattered, that little girl would have stayed dead. She never would have stood up, never would have got anything to eat. She would have went in a grave just like every other dead person does. But because opinions didn't matter, Jairus still took the teacher to his house. Jesus walked through the people laughing at him, and the little girl got up and walked around, because opinions don't matter. The last thing that shouldn't matter is the cost. The cost of loving people really shouldn't matter to us. Well, it's gonna affect the way people think about me. It's gonna affect the way people look at me. That really shouldn't matter. We started today in John 15 with the new mission, and 15-12 says, my command is this, love each other as I have loved you. And then Jesus goes and says in 13, greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for their friends. Greater love has nothing. I want you to love people like I've loved you, and greater love has no one than this, to lay down their life for their friends. And guys, that's what I'm fixing to do for you. I want you to love like me, and I'm fixing to lay my life down for you. Now, today, Jesus may not be calling us to physically lay down our life for the people around us, or that we're called to love, but we can certainly lay down our pride. We can certainly lay down our comfort and our ego. Maybe we need to lay down our pride by going back to somebody that we've done wrong in the past and say, hey, you know what, I'm sorry, and I love you. Maybe we can lay down our comfort by talking to people that don't look like us, or act like us, or talk like us. Maybe they don't even think like us. But we can put that comfort aside and we can love them. Or our ego about what people are going to think about us or what people are going to say about us. Surely if Jesus can lay down his life for us, then we can love other people like he did, and we can lay down our ego for that. Today, the mission that Jesus puts out for us is just love like he did. And today I hope you do that. I hope you apply that to your life, and I hope you go out and I hope you love people just like Jesus did, because he loved you. Have a great week.